Hey y'all, my name is Mara. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be starting a reading vlog where I read 2 arcs of young adult fantasy books. I am so excited to get into this reading vlog with you guys because I have 2 books that I am so excited to read and review and just discuss with y'all. I think they're going to be 4 or 5 stars each. I obviously wouldn't have requested them from the publisher to read early if I did not think that I was going to love them. So let me just quickly chat about what these books are about with you guys. So the first book that I'm going to be reading in this vlog is A Dark and Hollow Star, and this actually comes out February 23rd of 2021. So more than likely this book will already be out by the time this vlog goes up. I am so excited to read it, so let me give you guys a quick synopsis of what it is about because oh my gosh, does it sound amazing. The Cruel Prince meets City of Bones in this thrilling urban fantasy set in the magical underworld of Toronto that follows a queer cast of characters racing to stop a serial killer whose crimes could expose the hidden world of fairies to humans. 4 queer teens, each who hold a key piece of truth behind these murders, must form an alliance in their effort to track down the mysterious killer behind these crimes. If they fail, they risk the destruction of the fairy and human worlds alike. If that's not bad enough, there's a war brewing between the mortal and immortal realms, and one of those teens is destined to tip the scales. The only question is, which way? Wish them luck. They're going to need it. I just can't wait for this book. It sounds so good. All the early reviews that I've heard for it have just been glowing 5 stars, so I am really hoping to be one of those reviews as well. The next book that I want to chat about is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas, and this book comes out March 23rd of 2021, so this should be coming out in the next few weeks, and I am so excited for this because this is a Peter Pan retelling by the author of Cemetery Boys. I really did enjoy Cemetery Boys, but I think that overall the story was just a bit too slow moving for my taste. I didn't find that the plot was as engaging as I would have liked it to be. However, I think Aiden Thomas did a fantastic job of character work. So I am so excited to see what Aiden Thomas has in store for us with Lost in the Neverwoods. So here's a quick synopsis of what this book is about. When children go missing, people want answers. When children go missing in the small coastal town of Astoria, people look to Wendy for answers. It's been 5 years since Wendy and her 2 brothers went missing in the woods, but when the town's children start to disappear, the questions surrounding her brothers' mysterious circumstances are brought back into light. Attempting to flee her past, Wendy almost runs over an unconscious boy lying in the middle of the road and gets pulled into the mystery haunting the town. Peter, a boy she thought only lived in her stories, claims that if they don't do something, the missing children will meet the same fate as her brothers. In order to find them and rescue the missing kids, Wendy must confront what's waiting for her in the woods. I love Peter Pan, so I am so excited for this retelling. Again, I really liked Aiden Thomas's writing style and I really liked his characters, so I really do think that I have the potential to love this book just based off the premise. I am so excited to read both of these books and I can't wait to chat about it with y'all, so I will be right back to talk to you guys about my first thoughts on A Dark and Hollow Star. Hey y'all, so I am now halfway through A Dark and Hollow Star, so let's chat about my feelings on it. So just to recap what this book is about, it follows our protagonist Arlo, who is an iron blood in this urban fantasy world where there are fairies. So that's where you're getting the Cruel Prince vibes for sure. There is a fairy court in the human world, and this is actually taking place in Canada, I believe, which is an interesting setting I feel like I don't ever read about, so that's kind of cool. Basically, in this fairy world, iron bloods, which is what Arlo is, are being killed off. And you don't know why, but there are these different protagonists that you're following through their points of views who all know different components of this murder and all have different motivations for figuring it out. So you're trying to see who actually is behind these murders of the Iron Bloods. It definitely has the Cruel Prince vibes, but it also very much has the City of Bones vibes, which I am loving. I think that it's very similar to how the Downworlders were getting killed off in the Mortal Instruments, and now in this series, they're following these Iron Bloods who are getting killed off and you don't know why. I actually just got to a pretty big reveal in the book about halfway, and it makes sense for what's happening with these murders, and I'm definitely excited after this reveal to see what this means for these characters and who's actually behind all this. So I'm definitely really engaged with the plots, and I'm definitely curious to see what is happening, and I don't know, I really like it so far. I don't see this being a new favorite YA fantasy series for me, but right now I feel like it is unique because, you know, it is conveying the story in a different way, but I just feel like it's something that I've read before, but with different characters, if that makes sense. Speaking of characters, I do want to chat about them because you have different points of views in this book. I think there's 4 in total, and I am loving Arlo's point of view, and I'm loving Nausicaa's point of view, and I believe I'm saying this right. I love Nausicaa. She is probably my favorite character. She is just so witty and fun, and I feel like she has a lot of layers to her, so I'm really excited to see what her character is about and how she develops. And I also really do like Arlo's character, whose point of view you're probably in the most so far. She is definitely very strong, and I love that. That's why I love Nausicaa so much. I feel like they're both really strong female characters. Now, the other two points of views that we're getting, we haven't really been inside their perspective a lot, so I don't have many thoughts and feelings on them so far. But because we haven't spent a lot of time in their head, and because I've spent so much time with Arlo and Nausicaa, I find myself not really caring about the other two points of views, but hopefully they will entwine more closely with the points of views that we're currently following. I don't feel connected to all the main characters that the points of views are from, is what I'm trying to say, which is not the best, because I hate when I'm reading from two points of views that I don't like and two that I really like, because when I'm reading the ones that I don't like, I'm like, okay, when is this going to be over? I want to get back to the characters I care about. And I never want to feel that way about any characters in the book. I want them to be all pretty well rounded, and I want to root for all of them or be intrigued by their chapters. And it's not that I don't like those characters, it's just that I feel like I don't know them very well. And I do think that they're pretty well developed and pretty well characterized, but it's just I haven't spent time with them to really like feel connected to them. So yeah, I definitely have my favorites, which is a bit disappointing, and that's why I don't think that at this time this book will be 5 stars for me, just because I don't feel like that there's a proper balance and a proper pacing between being with all these characters. I do want to say one more thing before I wrap up this 50% update, and that is the world building is a lot. I did not expect this world building to be so info dumpy, just because I feel like I've read books like this before, you know, with the fae and the urban fantasy elements. I feel like this world building is definitely very detailed in terms of a YA fantasy. I feel like most of the time the world building isn't this complex and this confusing, so I definitely had to stay really engaged with the first 200 pages, but I'm now finding that the book is picking up and I'm starting to understand how things are connected more so it's tough to get through, but I think that it definitely paints a really great visual of the world, and I do think the world building was well done. It was just a lot within so few pages is what I wanted to say. So those are my thoughts on Dark and Hollow Star so far. I'm gonna go finish it and then we'll chat about it when I'm done. I've officially finished A Dark and Hollow Star, and I am really bummed to say that I only gave this one 3 stars. I really thought that I was going to love this one, and I did like it, but I just don't think that this one is going to be a long-term favorite for me. I think that it's definitely one that I will recommend and continue to recommend based on just what your interest is as a reader, but I just have a few minor complaints that don't necessarily work for me as a reader, and I hate even saying that they're complaints. I think that there's just certain elements of this book that don't work for me. So they're not necessarily complaints, it's just kind of like this book that I thought would be for me wasn't actually for me because of XYZ. So the reasons why this didn't end up working really well for me was because I thought that this was supposed to be a romance. I thought that there was supposed to be more of a romantic element to it, and there was one, but at the end of the book, it was just more so hinted at, and my overall investment in the story is not strong enough to continue in this series. So while I was really rooting for the romance, I really liked the banter between 2 of the characters, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm so here for it. I want this to happen so bad. And it kind of happened, and I get that it's a series, but based on other reasons, I just don't really feel like continuing it, so that was sort of a disappointment for me. I also really do think that the world building was a little bit too complex. So in my 50% update, I talked about how I didn't mind that it was complex. I do like a well laid out world, and I like to understand all the aspects of it, but here's why I don't think it necessarily fits for this novel. I think that this book, after reading it, I didn't really feel like it was catered towards all YA readers. I feel like it was catered more towards younger YA readers, which is totally fine. You know, if a book's not for my age group, it's not for my age group. Of course, I'm going to not vibe with it as hard as someone that the intended audience actually is, but it just confused me because the world building was very complex, and I feel like that would be hard for a younger YA reader to understand. But there were a lot of elements in this book that I thought were sometimes cheesy. There was a lot of like cheesy jokes and more younger jokes, which again is fine, but I feel like the pairing of the two just felt a little bit strange, and it impacted the overall tone of the story for me. My third thing, I believe I talked about this in my 50% update as well, is just that I didn't feel attached to 2 of the perspectives in this book. I only cared about Arlo and Nausicaa, and every time that I wasn't reading from their perspective, I was like wanting the chapter to be over because I feel like they weren't introduced early enough in the book. I feel like we never really spent time with them until 2/3 the way through the novel, and at that point, it's too late in my opinion. I need to know these characters from the very beginning, or you have to give me some sort of incentive to actually care about them. Otherwise, why should I? So I was definitely way more invested in 2 of the 4 perspectives, which didn't make for a very pleasant reading experience when I wasn't reading from the perspectives that I liked. So those are the 3 main reasons why this book didn't necessarily work for me. But again, it's one that I'm going to recommend and continue to recommend because I think that this could work for a lot of readers. I think if you do like younger YA, I think that this book would be great for you. It has a lot of great queer characters, which is so important. The diversity and the representation in this book is wonderful. There's a non-binary character, and I know that the author is non-binary themselves. So lots of great representation and its own voices. So I definitely still recommend this book. But if any of those things that I talked about might bother you as a reader, I might be a little bit more hesitant to pick it up just because it didn't necessarily wow me because of those elements. But at the end of the day, I still gave this book 3 stars. I still really enjoyed it. Now that we've talked about A Dark and Hollow Star, we can move into my second book for this reading vlog, which will be Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. I am now halfway through Lost in the Neverwoods, and I'm actually really enjoying this one. So just to recap, Lost in the Neverwoods is a Peter Pan retelling. So it follows a young girl named Wendy whose brothers disappeared about 6 years ago, and in current day, there are children disappearing. And so she thinks that the disappearance of her brothers is actually connected to the disappearance of these children. And I am just really liking it. I think that it's very atmospheric. I also really just love the Peter Pan elements. I was a little bit nervous when I first started this one because it does feel very juvenile. It feels on the younger side of YA, and there's nothing wrong with it being on the younger side of YA, but I don't typically gravitate towards those books. I like them just to be a little bit more mature, and for older readers, I like things to transcend just the younger age group. But I am now past that point. I feel like, yes, it is young, but I'm still really enjoying it. And my only real criticism with that is that Wendy, who's supposed to be 18, sometimes feels like she's 18 and then sometimes feels like she's on the younger end. So I don't think that Wendy is appropriately aged. She doesn't always necessarily act how an 18-year-old would, but she definitely does act like a kid or a young adult. I think that the mystery is really interesting. I'm definitely curious to see how these disappearances are connected and why these kids are disappearing in the first place. And it's just got a lot of really fun elements. If you like Peter Pan, I think that you'll really enjoy Lost in the Neverwoods because the Peter Pan elements are definitely very similar to how they would be in the original adaptation, but there are a lot of things that are played off of that and made into a more creative take. So I definitely think that I'm liking this one more than Cemetery Boys. I think it gave Cemetery Boys 3 stars. I liked it. I think that it had great representation, and I know that the book meant a lot to a lot of people, but my main criticism with Cemetery Boys is that there wasn't a lot in terms of plot. But in Lost in the Neverwoods, there is amazing plot. There's something always keeping me engaged when I turn the next page. I feel like there's always elements added to the mystery that I'm really, really liking. So I am gonna go finish it now, and then I'll talk to y'all about all my final thoughts in just a second. So I've officially finished Lost in the Neverwoods, and I really enjoyed this one, y'all. I gave it 4 stars, and I actually preferred it over Cemetery Boys. I think that Aiden Thomas does a really great job with characters. The characters in Cemetery Boys were phenomenal, and I think that it's the same case in Lost in the Neverwoods. I really liked Wendy's relationship with Peter. I thought that they had a lot of fun dynamics and mutual pining that was really fun to read about. I also really liked reading about Wendy and her dynamics with her parents and those around in the community, and it was also just a lot of fun. I think that the mystery elements were super engaging and interesting to read about, and I thought that the Peter Pan elements were done in a very classic but also still surprising way. So it definitely leaves you on the edge of your seat. I think that if you're a fan of Aiden Thomas's writing style, you're definitely going to like this one as well. It is a little bit simplistic just because it is on the younger side of YA, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. It made it super easy to get through, and I highly recommend this book. 4 stars. I hope this video put some new books on your radar. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're going to be picking up Lost in the Neverwoods or if you're going to be reading A Dark and Hollow Star. I would love to know. I definitely recommend both these books if you like YA fantasy. And yeah, that is it for this video today. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. It would really support me and my channel. And also subscribe down below for more book-related content. I post videos twice a week, and I also have weekly reading sprints every Thursday night. I also have my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Amazon wishlist, all that good stuff linked in the description down below if you're interested in supporting me there. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!